I think ever since the first John Wick movie, if you go into these films with the understanding that you are getting a formulaic but fun action movie that has its own established lore and a very unique fight style, then you're always going to be entertained. Because the John Wick films are very much over the top action adventure movies. The storyline is not necessarily the most important thing. I think it was the last one, Chapter 4, where Keanu Reeves barely spoke during the entire movie because it's mostly about the action pieces, the stunt sets, the driving sequences, the motorcycles, the horses, the crazy stunts, right? These films were literally developed, produced, and directed by stuntmen who have become producers, directors, and have gone on to create this franchise. And now they're going on to create incredible new things. We've got a new Highlander franchise coming out, and of course, this spin off film, Ballerina, which on its own is a pretty decent action film starring Ana de Armas and, of course, Keanu Reeves returning as John Wick to add a little bit of weight and a little credibility to the film and to sort of send it on its way and see if it has enough room to stand on its own legs. For my money's worth, Chris and I watched this the other night. I think this does stand on its own legs. Although, I will be honest, there are some aspects of this film, like in some of the other John Wick films, that definitely go into the Fast and Furious side of uh, credibility, where you're just kind of watching the sequences, kind of chuckling to yourself, going, "This is so far from realistic that it's no longer believable." Whereas in like the first John Wick film, everything was, there was a lot of believability to things. But as the franchise has gotten bigger and gone on longer, they have to do more and more crazy things to sort of stretch the imagination. And I think the highlight of this one was the the dueling flamethrowers. There is a scene where Ana de Armas and this bad guy are like, they have these flamethrowers and they're shooting at each other, and it's like precision flamethrowing, right? But also there's a moment where, if you could imagine like two people who have pole arms, so if I'm wielding a pole arm like this, right, and I go up against another person with a pole arm and we clash and we're face to face and we're pushing against each other with our pole arms. Now if you can imagine this is a flamethrower instead, and out the top is flame spewing from my flamethrower and flame spewing at the top from your flamethrower, so that we have like this above us where there's just flames going up into the sky. And there is this shot where the camera pulls back and like everything is spinning around. So the characters in the middle are spinning, and then the camera is moving around in this wide shot, showcasing like just fire everywhere and this spectacular spectacle of flame and VFX. And it is ridiculously over the top, but also majestic in its enormity. And if you just sit back and appreciate the lengths that the stunt team and the VFX teams went to in order to create this shot, then I think it helps you enjoy it a little bit more, because you're not just looking at it going, oh my God, this is too ridiculous to be believable. You're also like, okay, what did they have to do to make that work? Because that is a pretty freaking badass shot. So the story, I don't feel like the story is that important, but we'll talk about it briefly. We've seen this story before. Essentially, she is an orphan. In the beginning of the film, she sees her father killed by men who have a strange tattoo on their wrist. Um, and turns out her dad was, somebody in this organization, and she was very young, and she ended up joining the Roma group, the ballerinas that we see in the John Wick franchise, who are headed by I'm gonna have to look up her name because I forget. Yeah, bum bum. Anjelica Huston's character, who is like the leader of the Roma ballerinas. And she becomes one of these Ruska Romas and becomes one of the Kikimoras. And she becomes one of their members and goes off and has missions and meets John Wick. And along the way, she eventually comes across someone who has a tattoo across his wrist, a scar across his wrist, and that prompts her to have these memories of when she was a child. And she demands to know more from her boss. And her boss is like, no, that group of people is very dangerous. We don't mess with them. They don't mess with us. We have an agreement with them. You're not allowed to. I forbid you. And of course, she says, screw you. And she goes off and hunts them down and proceeds to have lots of fight sequences with individuals from this group. And it turns out essentially it is a mountain resort. I say resort. It's a mountain retreat. It's a retreat up in the middle of the mountains, in the middle of nowhere, that's been there for a couple hundred years, and it is a sanctuary for hitmen and hitwomen who want to raise families. And everybody in that group is all about being professional killers. And like the school ground, like when there's a sequence when she is arriving in town and the town realizes there's an outsider coming in, and like the parents are like getting the kids off the playground, like come outside, we gotta go hide. And like as the camera pans past the playground, it goes from being just a playground to also having a bunch of human targets for target practice. So the kids are not just learning and playing together; they're also practicing gunshot, firing guns together and that stuff. So it's essentially it's they call it a cult in the film. It's a cult of trained professionals. Quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand. Who raise children to be trained professionals, and they're all highly trained, which also makes the sequence that is like the last third of the film ridiculously over the top, because she's essentially a young assassin who is trained, no doubt, but she goes into this town where there are hundreds of people living it's dozens of families, and everyone is as highly trained, if not more trained than she is, and it's just nonstop chaos once she arrives. It's just fight sequence after fight sequence after fight sequence after fight sequence, and it eventually gets to the point where John Wick is called in himself to take care of her, and he arrives, and they have a small fight sequence, but then an agreement where he gives her basically 20 minutes to get revenge and seek out the man who killed her father, who is the leader of the cult. And if she doesn't complete it by midnight, then he is going to kill her, and that's the all she wrote. Of course, she completes it, and John Wick, walks away and leaves her and lets her live. And yeah, that's the story in a nutshell. We've seen this type of story before, where it's a, you know, lone girl whose father was killed, and she seeks revenge on the man who killed her father, and along the way she becomes an assassin, right? Like we've seen this in so many films and TV shows before. It is not a very original story, but it doesn't have to be, because again, the John Wick films are not necessarily about the story. They are about the set dressings, the action sequences, the VFX shots, the choreography, the stunt work, and it's all here in spades, including one of my favorite characters whose face I see all the time and I never remember his name. Um, he speaks, he speaks German. Yeah, Daniel Bernhardt. He's a Swiss actor, stuntman, martial artist. I think he's been in all of these films. And I also remember him from what was that science fiction show they did with where they put the discs in and they live forever? I can't remember the name of it now. Anyway, it's a great movie if you like these types of movies. It's another fun entry into the John Wick franchise. We had a lot of fun. Love to hear your thoughts. Drop them down below. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. I review lots of films, video games, and TV shows. We'll see you in the next one. Stay safe.